Welcome back to Foreign Friday, where I feel like that band LFMAO. Every day I'm hustling, baby band. I would really, Thomas, push it to make it to the finish line a few minutes after the start time. So we're going back to Rosehill. We had a pretty good weekend last Saturday or Friday, depending on how you look at it. In the Australian
Friday
track.
going into Saturday would probably be the most accurate.
So we had, I think we opened up. I had the Superfecta ice cold. That hasn't happened in a while. And then a few races later, you had a really nice trifecta ice cold. And in between, we had some exactas and winners. I don't think we made it through a single race where one of us didn't have the horse that won in our picks.
We all had something.
Yes. So that's the way we want it to be, right?
Ideally, yes. But this week will really stink.
I'm going to go the other way. This week we're going to be really hot. We're going to make last week look like child's play. We're going to go ice cold superfectas and trifectas throughout the races we're going to do. We're going to do races 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Big weekend of racing there, Tom. What's the marquee race?
That'll be the Golden Slipper, which is the richest 2-year-old race in the world. 5 million Australian, so it's about 3.5 million US. So that's pretty good. Pretty good money.
Yeah, it's the kind. Now we're talking about Terry's range for claiming horses right there. So yeah, we're going to go do those 5 races. The other races in the race 10 is a solid race, and then we're going to also have our picks 2, 3, 4, and 5. The card will start probably around 8 o'clock Eastern, somewhere in there.
Yeah, somewhere in there. 8:30, I think.
Tonight, so just a little bit.
I didn't do my time zone thing.
Yeah, we'll have it in a few hours nonetheless, but we'll put our picks up there for the beginning races, just not including the first one. It'll be just our picks, but we'll have comment and analysis in just a couple of seconds for the races we're going to focus on, and that's going to kick off, Tom, in race number 5, which will begin at 11 p.m. Eastern. Race number 5 being what is race number 5? The RANVET stakes there. They're going to go 2,000 meters, Tom. And here's the track set up again. 2,000 meters. They're going to start all the way down here. Let me see if I can, let me pop this off the screen so you can see where they're going to start. They'll begin here. They're going to run all the way up, all the way around, all the way down, all the way back around again. And almost one full turn around the big track there, Tom. I would imagine with all that running, you'd probably want a closer in your picks.
Well, this field is small. So, yeah, and there's some pretty talented horses in here. So it will be interesting race. And I think it'll definitely be more of a jockey's race because if all these horses are ready, it should be a very competitive small field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned small field. Was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 horses? Well, I put one too many in there. Sean going to be mad at me. I'll take one out. So we look at early on military mission, and I think it over. Those two are the quickest.
Well, we don't know what race he's going in.
Which one? Military mission?
Think it over.
Think it over. I think he's going to be in this one.
He's cross-entered in 2 races, 5 and 7.
5 and 7. Do I have him in? I think they might have scratched him in one of them. Let's see, 7. No, I have them in both of them. So
I haven't seen where they're actually gonna run them.
I'm not sure. I think in 5, Tom. We'll look at the scratches in just a minute here. Let's go look at race number 7. You said is the other one.
Yeah, 7.
So settling position, you'll see here as they settle, they should line up accordingly. So except for maybe a little gap in here to these.
Well, you're not going to get the 2 European horses in here where they're going to be settling. Vias Sistina should be somewhere towards the front. That's generally where she runs. And Palace to Carousel probably will be more towards the back.
All right. And then as they close, Thomas, you see here pretty similar numbers all across the board, though. Those 2 front runners have enough late speed if they're both in there to contend. So I would think it over, and military mission have a good shot to be on the front and pretty much stay there from the beginning to the end, considering the others don't have much more late kick. Let's forward up to race number 7. Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing, this is a soft 5 right now.
So it might be 4. I know it might be 5 instead of 6. Okay. Yeah, I'm a little bit. Anyway, let us know what's going to happen in your view, Tom.
I am going to take one of the European horses to start out with. I'm going to take Via Sistina. And she has barrier 8. Well, that'll change, but we'll go with that for the moment. It's her first start in Australia. They obviously paid a few bucks for her. She's run against and beaten some of the best in Europe. And that includes Group 1 winning in the Prix Pauli and the Cura. She's got 5 starts, 2 wins, 1 second, and 1 third. She likes the soft going. That's her first up record, I should say. Her soft going record is 7 runs and 3 wins and a second. Last race was against King of Steel and Gem at Ascot on the British Champions Day, and she finished second, and she's good. Let's just say that way. Number 2, Military Mission. My next choice. That's the speed in this race. Last race was not great. But I think he's going to be more forwardly placed this time around. The last was his first start after a layoff. So his second up record is 5 starts, 3 wins, and a second, and 1 third. So obviously he improves with a start. So got to think he's going to be somewhere around the money.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I'm going to take number 7, Palace de Carousel, which is the French horse that's coming into this one. Another one that's first time start. Her last race was in the Arc de Triomphe, and where she faced Ace Impact, and nobody did much against him, I should say. So prior 2 races, though, she raced at Deauville and at Longchamp, and she won both those races. And previous race, she beat Nashua, who just happened to win the Breeders' Cup Fillies and Turfs, Breeders' Cup Filly and Mares turf race.
Mm-hmm.
So if she's ready, she's also very good.
Yeah, I think they're all pretty good in here, as you mentioned, Tom.
Yeah, there's no bummers in this bunch.
Yeah, I think, though, I know they're all pretty good. I'm not a big fan of taking the favorites, but if this one gets in here, and I would think just from a trainer's perspective, this is probably the one you'd want to go in because the field is much shorter, so you probably got a better chance to win. I mean, that would be my call. But anyway, if it goes in this race, I do think that this one's well enough ahead of the rest of the bunch to be rated first. Really never run a bad race in its career. Number 2, I'm with you on that one, Tom. Both of us settling on the second pick as the second longest shot, Military Mission. This one, as you mentioned, Tom, I think should be forward, but also has the ability to close at the end. And I'm expecting a horse that in its second up effort, as you mentioned over here, 3 wins, a second and a third, put another solid effort in there. Number 3, something we disagree on, Tom. Buckaroo. I just wanted to say that name right there. Buckaroo in the second start after a layoff is all or nothing. So if the horse is either going to win, I should have probably put it first or fourth. But 4 times out, 2 wins, nothing else. It's another one that I expect should improve in the second start after a layoff because it had a nice barrier workout in between races. And then finally, I'm going to go with one of the foreign horses too. The Via Sistina, the 6 horse, definitely running, probably the best as it has in its career, I would say. No question about that. The only problem for me is when you look at the finishes, this horse just seems to finish just not enough to win, just enough to get you excited and then go, oh, damn it, when it doesn't win again. You know those kind of horses, Tom?
Oh, yeah. Bet on a few of those in my lifetime.
Yeah, it just gives you all that hope. It's just like lifts your chin, lifts your chin, lifts your chin, and then goes, there you go.
Yeah, gets noses. And my favorite ones are the ones that get nosed out or headed out. And it's like, okay.
Again and again and again.
And you just get a little more, please. Get a little more out of her or him.
Yeah, maybe send them to the right barn where they give them the good oats, Thomas. Let's move off to race number 6 tonight. The Rosehill Guineas. This one's going to start at 12:15 a.m. Eastern. So Tom and I will be probably still awake at that time. Again, another 2,000-meter run. So they'll start back there. Pay attention to race number 5. See how they play out. Although this race, unlike race number 5, has a few more horses in it, Thomas.
Yeah, I would say a lot more horses.
Yeah, maybe 2 or 3 times as
many. And some good quality, and then some
not so much.
Yeah, well, it's some unknowns. Let's just put it that way, because this is a Group 1 race. It's not like this is chump change they're running for.
No, running for first prize is $750,000. So well over $1 million is the total purses for the top 4 in there. And speed could be important because you got a lot of horses in there. Getting position would be important. You don't really want to get stuck and get a bad trip. I mean, one of them right there, Ganbare, looks like by far the speed horse in the field. So if that one can run reasonable fractions and doesn't get too ahead of itself, maybe it can stay out there. Most of them want to be middle forward in there, Tom. Really no true closer in that field that's just going to come from way, way, way off the pace. So maybe middle of the pack is where you want to be, maybe in this clump right there. And then finally at the end, a lot of them show pretty similar leg speed. So I think you're going to see them kind of run in a blob all the way around the track. And then the ones that have the most late kick and the best positioning probably get the W. Tom, who do you nod towards?
I think the one who will get the jump will be number 2, Riff Rocket, coming out of barrier 8.
And that one scratched out of a race into this one too, right?
Yeah, well, that was the older horses. This is 3-year-olds.
Okay.
He sat 9th last time out, which is kind of his normal running style. He likes to be a little bit in the pack, as they like to say. Ran 3rd. It was a Group 1 race, good race. Previous start to that was a Group 3 at Flemington, 1,400 meters, and he won that race. He's won a longer distance, but not at this level. So he hasn't won a Group 1 at this level, that type. But good form. I really think he's going to be hard to beat. 7, Immediacy from barrier 12. Undefeated in 3 starts. This is definitely going to be the most challenging in terms of field and in terms of distance. But he won it 1,800 meters last time out. He looked strong doing that. He's won on the soft going, so that's not against him. Can he go 4 for 4? I can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Number 11, Cosmic Lad, coming out of barrier 10 is going to be my final choice. He's done okay at some of his race in his last race, but he's been running at lesser tracks. So then he tried Ranwick. He went off at ridiculous odds, and he was the back of the field. And that was a Group 1 race. I'm going to put him in here because he has a good run at 1,900 meters. He likes the soft going, and I think really this is a horse may want longer distance to give his best showing. And since I'm not looking for him to win, he's in my position for 3rd.
And it gets 81 to 1 odds. So if he finishes 2nd or 3rd, you're going to get paid on that guy.
That's the idea. To have something in there a little more juicy.
Well, we're going to need something more juicy because you and I agree on the first 2. Riff Rocket, I think this one will benefit from going a little bit extra too, Tom. In the money 4 times out of 4 on a soft track. You'll see that over here. I got a little different numbers on mine. But anyway, my numbers show he's been on the soft track 4, 2, 1, and 1. I'll see where that comes from. But the heavy track, I also had a heavy reading off of him where he's 1 for 1. Maybe some people with a different reading in terms of how they graded the track, but I know right now it's a soft 6, so probably not all that far from a heavy track. Is it supposed to continue?
No, heavy would be 10.
10. Well, 6, you got to go 4 more to 10, which I think is only 2 more grades down, right?
Yeah. So it's soft, but it's soft. It's not like soft or good in places type of track. It would be more on the soft sides. So that's the way I handicapped it.
Let's hope it. Let's look at the weather real quick while I take a look at my next picks. So the weather right now says that it's going to be. Well, it looks like the sun's going to come out. So I would say that in all likelihood that the track won't be downgraded. That's what it shows online. So my next pick after Riff Rocket's the same one that you have, and that's the 11 or the 7 horse Immediacy. As you mentioned, Tom, he's undefeated, and I remember You remember the horse's name. For some reason, I can never remember the horse's name, but I recall the track announcer, may actually have been at Rosehill, but I know it's an Australian track, mentioning how until the horse loses, you just don't know how good it is. As you mentioned, this Tom has it. What was the name of that horse again?
Giga Kick.
Giga Kick. Race 6, you like the 8 horse to win in place. That one is Cap Ferrat. There you go. I might talk about that one myself, Christopher D'Souza. One of us is rubbing off on the other. Well, I actually do like that one. And not my next pick. My next pick is Tom Kitten. Tom, how can you not have this horse in your picks? It's got your name.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to do anything.
So this one, I do think at the end of the race, it will be closing in there, Tom. I think it's one of the favorites in here as well. And I think you'll see it benefit from going a little bit of extra distance today too. And that I'm with you, Christopher D'Souza. I'm going to go with the 8 horse, Cap Ferrat, 26-1. There you go. How about that? And it's another one of those horses in this blob of horses that I think the way the pace is setting up, that should really benefit at the end of the race. Catching an extra quarter mile should work to its advantage, because the last few races it's been coming on, but just running out of runway. Today, it won't run out of runway. Race 7, Thomas, as we move on. This one is as we inch closer to the $3.3 million Golden Slipper. But before we get there, we got the deepest field of the night, Thomas. 18 horses, and none of them are also eligibles. They're all in the race, so none of them are going to scratch out because they didn't get in. They might scratch out for other reasons. But this one is 1,500 meters. 1,500 meters start back in this chute. They'll make their way around. And if I recall, Tom, you prefer the horses to have a little bit of an inside draw there so that they can get to that turn in proper position.
Ideally, yes. But again, running style plays a factor in there. And of course, form. What's breaking on the inside? If you remember the 1,500 meter race, there were so many good horses in that one big race last week, and none of them did a damn thing.
I don't think we picked too many of them. We may have. I don't remember from that week to week. So again, we like to look at the speed to get a sense of who's going to do what where, so you can maybe get an idea. Well, it looks certainly like there's plenty of giddy up and go when they open the gates and they start kicking up that wet grass, Tom. There's a whole host of horses that are going to get after it. Boy, I see that much speed. I'm going to say immediately, show me somebody who's going to sit right off the pace. Going to be a whole bunch of them in there, tightly grouped. See, I don't really want to be back here with all these horses in front of me, because then you're going to be like Saturday night on the Kennedy in Chicago at 1 a.m. where they can't stay between the lines. And then closing speed, a lot of them with a lot of late speed in there too, Tom. So based upon the early speed, maybe having a middle forward position should give you tactically a good space to be in. You're not going to have to run past too many other closers and not that many to pass as they tire. That's how I would read that kind of speed setup, Tom.
Well, you better get an opening with 18 horses.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Who's going to get it?
Yeah. Well, I did take one of the outside horses. I took number 15, Lady Laguna from Barrier 12. She's run really well in her last 5 races. The only horse that she's really been beaten by was You Got Shevka, who won last Saturday in a top race at Rosehill. She's going to close. She's run from far back. She's run closer to the pace. So she's versatile. Never won at this distance, which isn't a huge surprise. But when you look at her record, and I just did it by percentages for her, she has 24 starts. She has 29% winning percentage and a 75% in the money percentage in her runs. And she's won from the outside barrier before. So it's just a matter of where they place her early and middle to see what if she's got the kick to finish.
Mm-hmm.
I took number 5, Golden Mile, as my next choice with Barrier 5. Used the Barrier Trial as a prep for this race and ran 4th in it. They didn't ask for much out of the horse. So Just using it as tightener, if anything else. He's only won once first up, but he's ran second 2 times. So that's why I put him second. I put him for second. He's won on the soft going, but not at this distance. But he did win at 1,600 meters.
Mm-hmm.
He's won and placed at this track 5 times. So tends to like Rosehill. I think he'll give a good account of himself in this race, and that's why I've got him second. Finally, I am going to take number 9 from Barrier 9, which is Lock Evil. And he's ran an average race last time out, sat 4th and backed up for 6th. But this is over a little better going than today, and he likes the little softer. He's won 2 of his 4 races that are on the soft going. And, he's done well. He's won twice from 5 starts, second up. So he may have needed that race. He's won at this distance too, but I like his odds.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, Thomas, if the horse doesn't run in the 5th race, it will run in the 7th race. Think get over. I still have. Either way, I think the horse is going to win. Though, as a trainer, I'd probably put him in the other race over there. But the horse has never run a bad race in 14 races, as I mentioned. But this is the second start off the bench. Look at that second up record, Tom. It's kind of hard to argue with the first or second up record. Even more difficult than the second up. 4 times out, and it's won every single one. After that, I'm going to go all the way over here, Tom, to 17. Wait. That's my grandmother with her German accent. She would tell me to wait. That's exactly what it sounded like. Wait. We had a little power outage, apparently, right there for a minute. That one ran about 2 seconds faster last time out at a mile than it did the previous time it ran at a mile. So I'm always a big fan of when horses show faster fractions. Sign to me of a horse that's in better shape for sure. Christopher liking the 7 horse to win place and show. So I'm telling you, one of us is rubbing off on the other. I don't know who it is. We're both thinking the same way, or either that it's the great minds theory in play. Either fade it for sure. It's probably what it stands for. Number 16, Militarize from New Zealand.
Scratched.
That one scratched?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Because I'm on the screen right now.
I think that one's scratched.
Williamsburg is scratched. This one hasn't shown scratch to me. If it's scratched, it's scratched. But right now,
not sure.
To the race net, it still looks like
I saw on one of mine. I saw it was scratched. So,
all right. Well, if it's not scratched, it's going to do good on the soft footing. If it is scratched, to hell with them. Next up, Tom and I agree. So I don't know who's rubbing off on who. This is like, 6 degrees of separation. Christopher's rubbing off on me, and then Tom's rubbing off on me. Pretty soon I won't be able to think for myself. But Lady Laguna, this one has not run a bad race in its last 8 races. Really, 8 races, been in really good form. Beyond that, one of the reasons I like this horse is every now and then, even when it runs really good races, it finds an extra gear and runs a really big race. So if it's sitting on a really big race, Tom, you might be right putting that one up on top. And that brings us to the race that everyone's going to the track today for down in Australia at Rosehill. We mentioned right off the get-go, there's the richest 2-year-old race in the world. That is the Tab Golden Slipper. And yes, we did make some money, Uma, yesterday on that one horse at Gulfstream Park. So perhaps we can use some of that with some of these high-priced 2-year-olds, Thomas, that will run 1,200 meters. So a little bit of a shorter race than we've seen so far. We're pretty sure they're going to start back in the chute. That's where they started last week, right?
I hope so.
Yeah, well, it kind of looked that way on TV. So we'll just go with that.
I think that's a safe assumption.
And so they're going to make that little curvature turn there again. I think being a little bit towards an inside draw with a little bit of tactical speed to get you properly positioned should work pretty well. But I do remember a lot of those front runners in the sprints we saw last week on a good surface, they did give it up to folks coming off the pace at the end. So I wouldn't be shocked to see that happen even more on a wetter, more difficult tiring running surface.
Possibly, but guess what kind of how old these horses are?
They're 2.
They're 2.
And there's a lot of them.
Guess what? You know what that means.
It means to just put their names in the bag, pull them out, and hope that you have the high odd horses, because the random number generator might do just as well as I am with my NCAA pool picks. But you do have, you have some distinct layers here of early speed.
You didn't have Oakland?
You want to know the crappy thing about that, Tom? Is I put together based upon Ken Pond. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's like the basketball guru. And I went through his instructions on how to use his rankings, and I put it in an Excel, and I used his way, and then I kind of added a little bit of like my touch to it. And it actually, like, Oakland was only like a 2 or 3 point underdog in one of the 2 ways. And I really, really thought about it, but I'm like, nah, Kentucky's lost in the first round a few years in a row. They have the best 3-point shooting team in the country. They can't do it again, can they? No. Somewhere, Charles, our friend Charles, charming Charles, is crying in Kentucky. As are 2 of my 3 NCAA pools, because I had him in the finals in 2 out of 3. Just stupid. Anyway, you got a couple distinct layers here of speed and mid-pack horses. Only one real way back there horse, but they're all going to be pushing on top of each other. That could make a pretty fast pace. So give me one that has some late speed. And again, we find 2-year-olds, and they're all pretty well bunched up, Tom. So it just stands to reason to put the names in the hat, pull them out, and see if you can do better than Tom and I. I'd probably take your side of the bet on that, but we're here to make picks, Tom. So who's going to win all the money?
We are, and I am going to be chalky in this race. I am going with number 1, Storm Boy, barrier 2. In this kind of a race, starting position is essential, and you got a speed horse. I think barrier 2 is a good place to be.
Yeah,
and he gets another benefit that Brian Moore's in to ride. He's won a few races in his life.
Yeah,
this horse is 4 for 4. He's run this distance 3 times. He's won on the soft going. He's going to go to the lead and come and catch me. And I think that's the way it'll be. There'll be other horses pushing him, but I don't think it's bad to have Ryan Moore if he's got horse under him. He probably knows how to get it home.
Yeah, for sure.
Number 3 is going to be my next choice, which is Shangri-La Express. Also has barrier 3. Can sit on the pace, can sit off the pace. Well, they worked okay. I mean, for in the money in all 4 races, got 2 wins out of it. Placed behind another horse in this refield was going to be my next choice. On the soft going, and I think it'll run well again. Finally, I will take that other undefeated horse, Switzerland, with barrier 7. He's also won 3 races, and they're all at RANVET. So that made me a little nervous about playing him at Rosehill. And they keep they're going to add distance, but he keeps winning, and he's winning. Well, he's won pretty good margins overall. He's used a barrier trial to sharpen himself up for this race, and he will set off the pace and close strongly. But can he catch Storm Boy? I don't think so.
Well, I agree with you. I think that Storm Boy is the one to beat in there. You mentioned, Tom, 4 out, 4 wins in the winners in the closure at the end. One of those W's was on the soft surface, so we know he can handle that. One was at the track, so we know he can handle the track as well. And one was at the distance, just wasn't at the track. So all of the different check marks for the conditions, track, surface, length, they're all W's. Switzerland is undefeated in 3 times. A couple of races ago, I mentioned that you just don't know how good a horse is until it actually loses. So between the 2 of them, somebody's O has got to go. Last time out did win a Group 2 race, so it's another step forward in here. But if he can prove he can handle the Group 1 and handle Storm Boy, could be the new thing in Australia, the new 2-year-old. Number 9 is my next one. Doubling down, 26-1 shot in there, Thomas. Third start after a layoff. It's only made it 3 starts in a row without going to the sidelines once before. And that horse won, and it won just 6 days ago. What do you think about that, Tom?
Quick turnaround.
Yeah, so I hope he's not too sore. But what I do like in here, too, I know in the United States, 3 consecutive speed figure increases in a row is an angle that wins at 15% or more. And so far, it's proven to be equally as effective, with a 6-day rest being the caveat in Australia. And then finally, number 6, Straight Charge. I think I should have probably ranked this one higher. It is undefeated too, Thomas, but not in the sense of Switzerland or Storm Boy. But when it's got on the soft surface, the 2 times it's run, it's found its way into the winner's closure as well. And we'll see if it can make it 3 for 3. So somebody's O is going to go. A couple of O's are going to go to the sidelines, Tom. Between the 2 of us, we mentioned what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 horses. And it's a 16 horse field. So I would definitely look at some of the others in there. It'd be interesting to see if we could actually put together the superfecta from all of our picks when it's over. Talk about the number 3 a little bit. Tom, you talked about Shanghai La Express. So why don't you add a little bit more depth to that if you can?
It had a good race last time out against Switzerland, and that was why I put it in there. I thought it was an effective race, and we'll see. Again, I think Storm Boy is by Justify. He's done everything they could ever ask, and Coolmore is putting they're bringing in Ryan Moore for a reason.
Yeah, and I mean, to me that would be maybe. I mean, I know Ryan Moore is by far one of the top jockeys in the world. And
he's going to have to get on a plane and go to Dubai for next weekend,
which is kind
of Augustin Rodin in the Shima.
We'll talk a little bit more about those horses next week, I'd imagine, then, right, Tom?
Yeah, well, I hope so.
So we kind of know what we're doing next week. A little foreshadowing there. So I will also link over to horseracingtoday.net. There's free past performances that are available that you can. I'll link to them that you can review as well. Really not a whole lot of information. So back to the basics and building blocks of handicapping to make your picks.
There's some good. RaceNet has some good description stuff to help you in your handicapping. Racing and Sports pretty decent too. And then there's one called Punters that also has some decent stuff.
Then I'll link to the past performances and to all the race stuff that you see here over at horseracingtoday.net. Probably about an hour and a half after we get off of here, because as soon as we're done, I got to run to downtown Chicago, and then they're doing a construction on the highway, which just makes it. I live 3 miles from where I'm going. It'll take me about 40 minutes to go that 3 miles. Just brutal. And then I'll post it up in there, and then along with post.
Your helicopter's not working today?
I got the Jetsons thing. You just dock it in the house. It's like a drone for the family. The family drone. I'll put that over there. We're going to get some bonus picks, too, for races 2, 3, 4, and 10. Won't be any comments, just Tom's picks and my picks, and you'll get that over at horseracingtoday.net again, probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours after we hang up the phone here. One last race for you and me, Thomas. This one is the final race of the night for you and me. It's the Kia, really, they're the sponsor, the ORA Galaxy, and the Kia ORA Galaxy is going to go 1,100 meters, so they're going to go even shorter. So at 1,100 meters, they're going to step up into that chute a bit. It's going to make that turn come a whole lot quicker. So I feel like it'll put a lot more emphasis on the early speed, Tom. And then the early speed, as far as our speed maps are concerned, there's a few of them there. They're all on the outside. So the inside horses don't have quite the speed that the outside horses do, but enough to maybe make them work a little bit harder than they might want to. Settling position, a few up front, majority of them towards the middle of the field. I could put a little bit of pace on those front runners again, which would open up the door to closers. And that's what we saw hit a lot of races last week over there. You got a bunch of them here again, not all that far apart. So I'd expect a little bit of a hot pace, a little bit of a trying to temper things down in the middle, and then just the cavalry coming at the end as they all fan out coming out of that last turn. When they're done fanning out, and the owners are jumping for joy like they do down there, Tom, when they win. Who's the happiest ownership group of all?
Number 11, Sunshine in Paris with barrier 2 is my top choice. She's going to use 2 barrier trials prep for this race. She's never won at this distance, but has won at 1,200 meters to 1,400 meters. And she's also won in a Group 1 company. They in recent time, they've spaced her races out pretty good. So she's got a lot of first ups. And since she's run 6 times, she's won 4 of them. That's pretty good. I've never been out of her money in any of her races, and that's why she's on top. Number 4, Uncommon James, barrier 1 will be my next choice. To say the least, is an interesting horse, is being mild. Only been out of the money in one of its races, and that was its final race as a 4-year-old. He's got wins in Group 1s. He's got a win in Group 2, so he's been just fine there. And he's one who's going to be, I think, a little closer to the pace. He also used a barrier prep for this trial for this race, and he won that one. His winning percentage really stuck out for me. He's won at a 46% rate. That's pretty good. Finally, we'll take number 12, Zapato, coming out of barrier 9. Her last race, she really didn't win the race she had in the past. That was why, because they put her up to the lead, and then she got caught at the end. Now, are they doing that for this race, or again, are we testing the horse to see? In the past, she's been a little bit farther behind, and then she's also done well with that, and she's also coming off a layoff. That was her first race, so she may need that race. She's stepping up a little bit in class. She's going from a Group 2 to a Group 1, but her form is good, and she likes to run the money.
Christopher D'Souza putting out a $45 win bet on number 7. That one is Kalos. Well, I hope it's 71 to 1 at $45 it comes in for you. That will make a great weekend start. You won't need to hit your NCAA pools on that one for sure. There should be a live stream somewhere on YouTube today for Rosehill. I get to watch them on. I watch them in TVG or in Twin Spires. In the States, if you open up an account, once you have the account open, you can watch the races. And I watch it on one of those two. I'm sure if you opened up an account like BetUs or William Hill or others, you'd be able to watch them as well. I haven't really looked for a live stream because I know I can find them inside the accounts that I have already.
Yeah, there are some live streams out there. And they do have some handicapping shows too that are worth a look, because they heavily use replays, and usually their replays are, because of these horses race against each other a bunch. You can get some good idea of what they're thinking of, what they saw out of that race. The other thing too is to note that in Australia, they run both ways. They have right turn and left turn. So not as quirky as England, where you have up and down and over the river and through the woods. But it'll be interesting.
I can use it to buy my helicopter. You shouldn't buy you one. You buy me one so I can get back and forth in this Chicago traffic. So in race number 1, I like this pick from our guy, Jackpot Jerry. He likes number 3 through 17. Somewhere in there, the 4 is going to work out too. So I think that would be 3 through 17. You're likely to get a winner if you pick 3 through 17, but I would be very suspicious of the 1 and 2. I know it's probably 3, 17, 4. I'm just kidding, of course. In race number 2, he likes the 7 and the 9 horse. Again, Tom and I will put our thoughts for those races over at horseracingtoday.net when I'm done borrowing Christopher's soon-to-be bought helicopter off that 7 horse. If he doesn't decide to put 45 on the 7, he might think about putting it on the 1 instead. That's where I'm going to go. Private Eye. Horse has a pretty solid 3rd up record, Mr. Thomas. 3 wins and 7 tries. Not bad. I like the fact that the horse has run at the distance a couple of times, the short distance, and managed to end in the winner's enclosure in both of them. Next up, I'm going to go a little bit farther down here to King's Gamut. It's an also entry in there, Tom, that did scratch its way into this race. I know here, trainers, when they leave their horses in as also eligibles, it's usually a sign they think they got a good shot at this race. They wanted to be in it for a reason. This might be one that likes the wet surface. Tom has a win and a second on there, and he's also traversed this course and distance twice with a second and a third. So horse for the course and the conditions. And number 6 is what I will be saying long before the race starts tonight. I got to get up early tomorrow morning. But buenas noches. So I'll be long before sleeping, before it's good night. But this horse's last race, I always like to see this too, because I think you're going to get good odds on this one. The last race was better than it looks because the fractions were about a half a second faster, even though he finished a little further off than he did in the prior starts. And then, Tom, one that we agree on is Uncommon James, my 4th selection, 8-1 right now. First up record, pretty solid. Horse has a win, a couple of seconds, and a third. And as you mentioned, he has a pretty good barrier workout prepping for today. So I think he'll add to that off the bench record this evening or this morning, depending upon where you are, because this one kicks off at 12:20 a.m. Eastern. And then finally, $2 try, 179.11 key box in race 9. He's saying to box him up with the key with that 7 horse across the board. Key box. All right, Tom, will you kind of let the cat out of the bag what we're going to do next week? We're going to head off to the Dubai World Cup, I'm guessing.
We are. We're going to be taking a look at the Meydan races. I know you're exclusively going to be doing the purebred Arabian race for the first.
I can't wait.
I know your Arabian knowledge is really vast.
I got that pedigree down, baby.
The rest of them are there's the UAE Derby. Sometimes has a horse running from that in the Kentucky Derby. It did last year. So we'll have to take a look at that one. Not that they'll necessarily win the Kentucky Derby, but it's an entry. Actually, the entry that did run, one of them ended up finishing second in the Breeders' Cup Classic. So that's something to note.
Yeah, pretty solid horses.
Yeah, and of course that was a Japanese horse. So we'll definitely be looking at those Japanese horses. I know there's a sprinter coming in from Hong Kong that looks interesting. And the rest of it is always going to be interesting because you've got the Breeders' Cup Turf winner going to be in there. Augusta Rodin, as I mentioned, Ryan Moore will be riding that one. And that ran a pretty nice race in that Breeders' Cup Tour.
So we'll definitely tune in for that. So to find out when we're going to go live, make sure you hit us up on our social sites down there below. No matter where you're watching, some form of interactivity is appreciated. Thumbs up if you're on Facebook or YouTube. Subscribe. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of the above. Horse Race, the number 2 day. If you're watching us on Twitter, kindly retweet. If you're watching on YouTube, kindly hit the share button and put that with your friends, even if they don't like horse racing, because we'll get them addicted. So you can put that share button up on there. Of course, if you have an issue with that, there's all sorts of resources to help you so that you only bet what you can afford to lose. So only bet what Tom and I say what you can afford to lose. The last week we won a little bit, so that was a little bit.
Well, we're optimistic as we are every time. But sometimes our picks are probably the ones you avoid, depending on your hand. Yeah, it goes.
See you next week, Jackpot. We'll be looking forward to doing that. Of course, you mentioned the Kentucky Derby. The first 100-point race is tomorrow with the Louisiana Derby. We'll have all of our picks for the Louisiana Derby. The Jack Ruby Stakes, the Steakhouse.
Jack Ruby Stakes at Turfway, yeah.
Turfway Park. So 2 huge days there. And then next week, we'll have a wagering guide for the Florida Derby. And to me, the Florida Derby, I think, is the marquee race to find horses that are going to have the best chances to win in the Kentucky Derby. It seems to me that the Florida horses have performed the best of late, but that may not be the case. Then you got the Santa Anita Derby. Then after that, you're going to have the Toyota Bluegrass Stakes. So the road to the Roses, the first Saturday of May, is really going to start to heat up. All of that information, again, over at Guaranteed Tip Sheet, along with the free picks every single day. So link to that down in the description below. That's it,
and
Thomas.
Of course, the Dash for the Dandelions will be a top run, to say the least. That used to be the joke of the Illinois Derby, but of course we did get a winner out of that one year.
Well, Two Phils did all right, right? I don't think he ran in that race, did he?
No, he ran that race.
No.
No. It was the one that was used to be run at Sportsman's.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
It's run on Hawthorne now.
Let's break down Horse Track, because that was awful when they did it. That was an awful place.
So, and I mean, you ever been to Stickney, Illinois? Though I mean, you just did.
Well,
I'm not.
They were trying to duplicate the Dover Downs thing, and let's just say it didn't go too well. That and getting busted for bribing a former governor didn't help matters either.
Well, I mean, the current one is on tape trying to buy a Senate seat. So with the FBI, I mean, it is Illinois. What do you expect, right?
Absolutely.
Al Capone.
The more interesting, the better when it comes to politics.
Yes,
it is one of our favorite sports.
It's in our DNA, Tom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It has to be.
Well, we cheated to get in the into the republic. We were 30 years ahead. We didn't have the right population to become a state, so they lied.
Not surprising. Anyway,
no, it is not.
Yeah, we're going to find
an auspicious beginning.
We're going to have a series of state troopers pulling us over in the next 48 hours. All right, we'll be back next weekend, as Tom mentioned, for Foreign Fridays for the Dubai World Cup. Again, all of these great races on the weekend. Get your information at Guaranteed Tip Sheet. Of course, Terry and I will be back Monday and Tuesday for Parks, Wednesday and Thursday for Gulfstream Park, then Friday for the Dubai World Cup. So set your schedule to all of that. Tom, any final words before we dance?
Well, we should mention that the official sort of start will be for the flat season in England this weekend with the Lincoln Handicap. And that's always an interesting race to watch. And last weekend, the Irish flat season started. And we'll be visiting there too. We will definitely have a visit or two to the Curragh this year. And of course, French racing has been going for a little earlier. They go a little earlier.
So our plate will be full. Of course, June. I mean, the biggest one, and not that distant, not that far off anymore, is the Royal Ascot. We'll have every day of the Ascot coverage. So again, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything.
Hopefully we get one of those 150-to-1 shots this year.
We had a pretty good one last year, if I remember, like a $70
one. We had a $70 horse.
Yeah, it was a nice big horse there. So we find them. We'll find some more this year. We got plenty of days to figure that out, the Ascot, and plenty of time to get there.
Oh, yeah.
Until then.
Wesley Ward will help us out, too.
Yeah, well, he's never going to get a high price like that, unfortunately.
No.
We know we can fade him if he throws IRAD on him, though, because IRAD can't ride over there because the other jockeys.
His life depended on it. Right now, he has not figured it out.
They cut him off first over there versus him cutting them off. Just kidding, of course, IRAD.
They know.
Yeah, they watch the tape. All right, folks, we're going to get out of here. Enough clowning around. No matter what you're doing for the rest of this weekend, till we get back together again, we certainly hope you have God's favor, God's grace, and every single thing that you do ends up, Tom, down there. It's called something else. It's called the
Winners Enclosure.
Indeed. Enjoy your weekend, folks. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care.